Let's bring in our Monday panel of political strategists. Grahame Morris here with me in Canberra, and Bruce Hawker is in the Sky News Centre. Welcome to you both. I want to start with the opinion poll out today, which we haven't discussed yet. This is the Nielsen poll in Fairfax papers. Take a look at the numbers. Not good reading for Labor in particular. Starting with the primary vote, you can see Labor is back to where they were at the election, 33%. The Coalition on 44%. And that is down 4 points for Labor, up 3 points. The Greens are also up a little bit as well. Two-party preferred, that means a 51-49 lead there for the government. But here's where it gets particularly interesting. Firstly, the Prime Minister's approval ratings. Well, he's still in net negative territory by 2 points. For Bill Shorten, he's dropped down to 39% and trails as preferred Prime Minister by 10 points. Bruce Hawker, to you first. What do you put this down to, these results?
I've got to say I'm quite surprised by them, David, but I suspect that it's the Royal Commission announcement by the government. I think that has been welcomed by the public, and I think...
And do you think it was poorly handled by Bill Shorten?
Well, I think the problem, obviously, for a Labor leader, particularly one with a background in the union movement, is that you're going to get, wedged on these sorts of issues. And that, of course, is part and parcel of the reasoning behind the Royal Commission announcement anyway. So,
sure, but do you think he handled it poorly or handled it well?
Well, my preferred course, as you know, always is to accept the inevitable in such circumstances like this.
So he handled it poorly.
And to say, look, there's going to be a Royal Commission. I think it's going to be politically motivated, but let's get on with it. Would probably be the better course to take. So, in many ways, I think the preferred course for Labor right now is to stay away from issues like the unions, because I think they are jammed on it because of the way the unions still control the Labor Party to a large extent, and issues like Indonesia aren't going to be good for Labor. They've got to stick to their knitting. Health, education, cuts, hypocrisy on the part of the government. They're the places they need to go to.
Grahame, is this just the Royal Commission issue, or do you think there's more than that in what we've seen in today's numbers?
Well, there's a couple of messages. One is that the government does not have to change course at all. Two is the Labor Party's on 33%. That's roughly where they were at the last election. In the Griffith by-election, they got 38%. In the poll in Tasmania, they got 24%. It was a very, very wise, one of the wisest Labor people said to me the other day, it does look as if the Labor Party will not be able to govern in its own right for a long, long time anywhere in this country. They will need the support of the Greens and others. But if you look at it, what were the issues? The issues were jobs, SBC, Holden,
Toyota. Toyota was a bigger story, I would say, than the Royal Commission.
And the Royal Commission. And we had Bill Shorten as essentially saying it's the government's fault, all of that. And the electorate's not stupid. They knew it was sort of the old government had a fair bit to do with it, that there were old unions involved in this, and there was old corruption. And poor old Bill Shorten got himself on the wrong side of all of those.
Let's look at the drought. Tony Abbott's wrapped up his drought tour. We'll get an announcement, I think, early next week on what the government's going to offer. We're going to look more detail at that next hour. But Bruce, we heard from one of the union leaders just a little earlier saying there is rank hypocrisy on the part of the government, saying no to manufacturing workers, but yes to drought-stricken farmers. Do you agree with that? Is there inconsistency here?
Well, just to backtrack a little bit on this, where this all starts, of course, is Joe Hockey's line, the age of entitlement is dead. And it seems to me that that's superficially attractive in the first instance, and people are going to be supportive of the idea of cutting assistance to manufacturers if they don't think that in the long run they're going to be viable. But there's going to be a downside to all that, and of course that's going to play out in the weeks and months to come. So glib one-liners really don't lend themselves very much to realpolitik, and what we're seeing here is realpolitik. The National Party is never going to allow the Prime Minister to go and cut assistance to farmers, even if he was inclined to do so. And no one really wants to see that. But what Labor needs to be doing now is saying, OK, there's this, but what about the manufacturing industry? There's Ardmona, where they didn't assist an industry, but there was the confections in Tasmania. There's Qantas, where they are giving guarantees. There are high-paid women on paid parental leave who are going to get a huge amount of entitlement as a result of this government. So
you think Labor should link in the farmers as they make that case? They should say why do they get help and not the others?
No, I think they should say, look, it's fair enough for farmers to get assistance because they always have and they live in extraordinary circumstances and they do a great job. But they do need to point to the fact that there are a lot of other industries, a lot of other people, a lot of other sectors out there that do require assistance. And it's not just a case of saying we're going to take, because that's why we pay our taxes ultimately, to give some of that money back to people that do need it, to provide safety nets to people.
Well,
and
I guess
that
the
includes manufacturers, that includes fruit manufacturers or fruit canners.
The problem is we're borrowing money to do all that, Grahame, at the moment. But just on this issue of consistency, is that something the government needs to be careful of how it sells this?
They do, but in this case, it's a natural disaster. You know, if you didn't give sort of help here, then you wouldn't be helping the states or local government or anyone else if we had a cyclone somewhere, if we had a tsunami somewhere, if we had floods somewhere. This is a natural disaster. And the difference between this and manufacturing is that if it rains, then they're back producing their beef, back exporting their sheep, all of that sort of stuff. Whereas it's been raining taxpayers' money on a hell of a lot of these businesses, and still no outcome. You know, I think there is a difference, but the government has to be very, very careful about explaining what the difference is, but there is one.
Final issue, this will be the big story tomorrow. The High Court around lunchtime tomorrow will hand down its judgment on the missing votes in WA, whether we're going to have a fresh Senate election there. Grahame, to you first on this one. Does seem to be the hot tip. That's what expectation, that's what the High Court will decide on. Do you think they will, and how will that play out?
Well, nobody knows. None of the parties know. The Liberal Party doesn't know. But this could be the most stupid decision that we've ever seen a court or the Electoral Commission make. We may well all go back to the polls in Western Australia for 24 votes. You know, there were 1,300 missing votes, but only 24 of them voted for the odds and sods, the Earwig Party, the left-handed Koala Party, whatever they were. They're the only ones that count. And for that, the Electoral Commission will have to rerun things at a cost of $12 million, plus whatever the parties spend. I reckon if the court and the electoral commissioners gang up on this, they ought to pay the $12 million out of their own pocket for not using their common sense. All they had to do, they know the 4,000 people, the booths in the booths where the 4,000 people voted, and there's only 1,300 of those missing, and of those only 24 count. Why not just go and ask them to have another vote, not the entire state? This is stupid.
Bruce, we know the Liberals also argued in that court case there shouldn't be a fresh election.
So did the Labor Party, so did Palmer.
Well, Palmer certainly did. Did Labor argue against a fresh election, Bruce? And do you think it's likely?
Look, I don't know whether they did, but I do think it's likely. And if it does occur, then I think it'll be a very interesting one, because it'll be right across the state, and it'll be an opportunity for the Labor Party to, I hope, focus on the issues that are going to matter in Western Australia. That'll be, the possibility that the government's going to introduce a co-payment for Medicare, to visit the doctor, to visit your GP. If you've got 3 or 4 kids, that's a lot of money. It could be that they're going to be talking about education cuts or no cuts or whatever they're going to be doing in that space. Cost of living challenges for a lot of people across Western Australia. Huge now as a two-speed economy still operates in that jurisdiction. These are the things that I think Labor needs to be focused on. And in all likelihood, there will be an election, and it'll be an interesting way of judging, on a state level, how both the opposition and the government are going.
And no doubt we'll talk a lot more about that if indeed that's where we are headed. Just before we go, I just want to tell you something that's just dropped on my inbox. Speaking of Western Australia, the West Australian Labor MP Melissa Park has stood down from the front bench. She was the Shadow Assistant Minister for Health, personal and family reasons. She says an immediate family member is facing a serious health issue and she needs to make that her priority. We certainly wish her well.
Indeed.
Bruce Hawker and Grahame Morris, thanks. We'll catch up again soon. We'll take a break, back with more on PM Agenda, including what the Agriculture Minister Barnaby Joyce is taking to Cabinet on drought assistance.